Okay. Okay. Can you guys hear me now? Do we have sound? Maybe? Yay! Okay. That makes me so happy. Okay. Yay! I am so happy we have sound. Woohoo! Thank you, Victoria. And Rain told me that too. So thank you guys. I am feeling better. I am still having headaches, but they're not migraines, so I'm going to count my blessings and be happy with that. I'm sorry for looking like total crap. I'm really tired. As soon as this is over, I will be showering and passing out. So excuse the mess that is me today. Hi, Lisa. Oh, I'm so excited you guys are here. It is 9 o'clock on the dot. So I got all the technical issues fixed before 9 o'clock. Yay. Aw, thank you, Rain. I'm trying. Oh my goodness. I'm terrible at technology. So we are trying. We have people coming in and I'm so excited. I got my highlighter, I got my pen, and I got my book. So I am ready and excited. And hopefully no more technical issues. Are you still writing in September or did you postpone January? I am postponing to January. Yay, Lisa! Welcome! Yay for your first time. So I am postponing to January. I've got to figure out what's causing these headaches and migraines because even though it was a 72-hour migraine situation, the headaches actually started worsening around July 23rd. So it was a progressively worsening headache situation until we got to the migraines. So I am going to be studying on the weekends during the fall exam and then studying over Christmas break and taking in January. So give me a little bit more time. So I will be doing cards with y'all forever if y'all want to. Lisa, as it's your first time, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Don't worry about interrupting or any of that. You just ask anything you want and I will try to answer it. Hey! I love when I recognize the names. That gets me all excited. Yay. Yo, you're right in January too, Victoria. Yes. Yay, working right together. So, I know that I want to talk about this real quick while people are coming in. We talked last week about doing it twice a week. So I was wondering if y'all still want to do it twice a week, and if so, does Wednesday night work for y'all? If y'all want to do Wednesday and Sunday. My husband will be out of town tomorrow morning to Wednesday morning, so I can't do it Tuesday night, and I have anatomy Tuesday night in the fall. So if Wednesday works for y'all, we can do Wednesdays and Sundays. Yay! And I will do these as long as y'all are finding them helpful and are enjoying them. Um, Even when I take the MCAT, because I actually kind of like these. I'm weird, but we all have our little quirks. All of us like different things, and any day in the evenings. Yes, they will be 9 p.m. Because my kids should be sleeping. They're not, but they should be. Um, and that's when I am available to Victoria. So that works. So excited. All right, I'm gonna give you a couple more minutes. Does everybody have the passage and questions? What a lot of people did last time is they pulled it up to the side so that they could follow along. So it is on, let me type it. It is blessherhealth.com. Ah, I don't know why that's highlighted. It's really weird, but okay. Yay! So it is if you have this book, it is the Next Step 108 Passages. This is the old edition. They're about to release a new edition in September, and I'm kind of tempted to get it because there's not a lot of CARS resources out there, but I want to know that it's different. I don't want to get another 108 book and it be the same 108 except for like 5 passages. So I'm going to look into that. But this is the third passage of the first test. Yay! So excited, guys. And by the way, it's really hot in this room. There's no ventilation, but it's the only place I can hide from my kids. So don't just ignore the messiness. Yay, y'all are all ready. Okay, and I don't mind if y'all want to do the passages and questions ahead of time, that's fine. I don't post the answers to them because I like us to work through them together. I have not read it at all. I have not looked at the questions at all. I don't even know what it's about. I literally pick a random passage, take a picture of it, post it, and send it to you guys. And other than that, I don't look at it. So I don't even know what it's about, but that's kind of the fun of it. So if this is your first time, we are going to do the passage together. We're going to read paragraph by paragraph. I'm going to tell you what I'm highlighting, what I'm paying attention to, what I thought of it. Last time it was a really good passage because there was tone and there was the author's voice and personality was in there. So that was all really good. It ended up being a really great passage, and we got all the questions right but one, which it was an annoying question. We're not even going to go there. But so we're going to read the passage paragraph by paragraph and just kind of say what we paid attention to. What did you think the main idea of that paragraph was? What are you getting so far from the passage? And kind of showing how I actively read. I can't remember who it was last time, but someone pointed out that I'm a very active reader, and I guess I am, but I like to kind of guess where the passage is going, what they're talking about, where the MCAT questions are going to come from. And like I said, when you've done this for a while, you start noticing the patterns. You start noticing a certain sentence that's out of place. You start noticing, just certain vibes that you're getting, and it kind of is like a gut feeling, but I try to explain it as best as I can because to me, it can sometimes be a gut feeling, but this is a skill to be learned. I was not good at this in the beginning. I learned this, and the way that I learned it is, I'm telling you 100%, I had the EK 101 verbal passages, which, by the way, if you hear me call it verbal, I studied for the old MCAT way before I did the new, so it's still verbal in my head. I did the EK 101 verbal passages, and I literally did 2 to 4 passages a day. And that's how I learned. And I poured myself over every question I got wrong. I poured myself over every question I got right. And I just practiced and looked at it and figured it out and learned. And I didn't really do a course. I didn't really do a technique. I was going to tell y'all today, I have so many tangents. I'm so sorry. The Kaplan book, I was going to show it to y'all. If y'all have the Kaplan set, the Kaplan book makes me so mad because there's not a single practice passage, because I was going to grab a Kaplan one. It is 12 chapters about the cars passage without a passage to practice. That is insane to me. I don't understand how you write 12 chapters. And I mean, they talk about each question and the question types and what strategy you should take and all this and that. Nothing against Kaplan. I like Kaplan. I use them. But that's insane. Because if y'all are MCAT studying, y'all know you don't have time to read a 12 chapter, 100-page book on cars. You don't have time for that. And if you did, you should be using that time to practice, not reading a book. So that's what I'm hoping to help you guys with and help myself, because I'm MCAT studying too, is working actively through these passages and practicing them with you and with us together and going over the questions and figuring it out together, because I feel like you're going to learn a lot more from that, like I did from my own practice, than reading a 12 chapter book about how to do it. So, and I know this was covered in the last video. I don't know if y'all watched, but I did used to jot down, you get scrap paper on the test. I got that question recently. And you can highlight using the computer program, though it's so freaking aggravating that I usually don't. Yes. Yes. The EK, I will say this. I want to say this real quick. The EK 101, I do think it's graded a little tough, because on the EK 101, I was getting, my scores were ranging from 7 to 11 on the test, and with most of them in the 9 to 10 range, and then I made 11 on the actual MCAT. So I feel like those are a little graded difficult too. So if you're, which I mean, it's hard to translate to the new MCAT. And for y'all that don't know, I took the new MCAT as well, made a 130 on verbal. So yeah, see, and that's another thing too, is EK is a little, like 4 to 10. Yeah, that's a that's a range. I had that too. I mean, I would get a 7 and then I get 11, and I'm like, this is stupid. But it's not so much the score and the number, it's the practice and the intuitiveness that you will pick up. And like I said before, the MCAT, all these books that they're writing with these passages, and I mean, Next Steps has one, everybody has one, the actual MCAT, every time there's an MCAT, if there's like 40 test dates, every single one of those MCATs have to be completely different. Yet, they all have the same template because it's a standardized test. This works to your benefit because that means that they're using a template to write those passages and those questions. And if you can learn the template, you can be ahead of the game and figure out how to do the questions and the passages and what to pay attention to, what not to pay attention to, and what they're looking for, because it's a template. Like, it's, you know, there's going to be differences, but they're made from the same cloth. So I hope to help y'all with that to the best of my ability. So I totally went off on 5,000 tangents. I am so sorry. All right, how about, do y'all want to go ahead and get started? I don't really want this video to be an hour and a half like the last one, but in that light, I am here as long as y'all need me, so we will work through this passage. We're not doing it timed. Maybe that'll be a thing down the road. That'd be kind of fun. But we're not doing it timed. We're not worried about timing. We're not worried about if you can ask as many questions as you want during, after, whenever. I'm here for y'all. I'll stay here as long as y'all need me to, and we're going to get this out of the way. So, everybody has their passages. Let's get started. So excited. It's kind of dorky how excited I am about this, but okay. So my phone is going off like crazy and it's annoying me, so I'm gonna throw it over there. Let's do it! Yes, that's the spirit. I'm excited. Y'all getting excited about cars gets me excited about cars. Okay, so we've got, like I said about the notes, I'm so bad about tangents. Okay, so I highlight names and dates because those could come back up in the questions. I highlight terms that are defined. I try not to highlight everything. When I do studying for school, I highlight everything. You look at my textbooks and they're like bleeding highlighting. I try not to highlight everything here because then my personal hardest questions are the retrieval, because I like to read understand it and then answer and fly through. And I hate having to go back and look up a word and look up the context that it's said in. And so those are my difficult questions. I know those are my difficult questions. So to help with that, I highlight as minimum as I can so that if I have to retrieve, there's less that I have to wade through. So that is my technique with while reading. I will show y'all what I choose to highlight, and let's get going. All right, 2013. Two Colorado men brought a discrimination suit against the Masterpiece Cake Shop, saying that the bakery refused to make their wedding cake because the couple was gay. The baker, Jack Phillips, claimed that as a private businessman, he had the right to choose whether or not. At first, Macy Retrieval. Okay. If y'all are still reading, that is fine. Woo, we have 12 people. We're doing good. I just said that I was going to highlight a lot, and I highlighted a lot. My bad. Yeah. That's a little bit more than I usually do. So, first paragraph. We got to compare and contrast here already, starting out the gate. MCAT loves compare and contrast. I know y'all know that if you've done questions, strengthen, weakens, refute, supports. They ask a certain person's perspective. Sorry. So they'll ask, in Jack's opinion, and then you have to remember whose opinion is what. So they love conflicting opinions and conflicting viewpoints. So that's something to always notice. If you notice, if the passage gives you two different people or two different situations or anything like that, pay attention to that because they love comparisons. I cannot talk right now. Okay, so we don't know the name of the men, so that's not important. We know it's a discrimination suit. I highlighted the Masterpiece Cake Shop. The Jack Phillips is the baker. We know his name, so that's important. Oh, it's all good. We have the judge who ruled against Phillips, so we have a conflict there. Phillips is saying he doesn't have to serve them. It's his private business. Judge says, no, you do have to serve them, even though you reject to on it religious. And then we have a judge with a quote. So they love quotes. And he says, even though that seems reasonable, yet this view, Spencer says, does not take into account the cost of society. I highlighted that. And the hurt to persons, simply because of who they are. Okay, so we have overall themes so far in this passage is we have a small business right to deny service and same-sex relationship. And we have the baker and we have the judge. So, again, kind of like our passage we did last time where the passage ended up being about something totally different by the end of it. We can't say that's the main idea at this point or at the main idea of the passage, but that is what we are looking at right now. So we're going to move on to the next paragraph because there's not much else we can take from that. The author has not put any tone words or opinion words in that first paragraph that I have noted. Normally I can pick up on those pretty well. I don't see anything that shows what the author's viewpoint is or what the author thinks about this. We might get that at the end of the author saying, well, I disagree with this or I agree with him or but as of right now, we do not have an author's opinion. Another very important thing, they love the author's opinion. So anytime the author gives a word or a statement that you get an automatic emotional feel from, whether it's the word like absurd or flattery or should we replace it? I would note who says what quote, but I wouldn't highlight every quote because like that's a really long quote. That's half the paragraph. Um, and I don't think of that as an important quote. Just more so why the judge is ruling that. Quotes are hit and miss. A lot of times I don't see a lot of questions on quotes, and I feel like it's because it's an automatic thing. It's almost a distractor. Because you're taught in high school, college, whatever, to pay attention to quotes. And so you automatically zoom in on it. The MCAT likes you to pay attention to things that they didn't necessarily put. They don't put neon lights around the things. Like what I was talking about, the author's tone and the author's opinion is normally not outright stated. The author's not like, I think this is absurd. It's normally kind of snuck in there, and then you're supposed to be able to pull that out. Yeah, I would definitely think about why that quote is in there, because there's a reason they put that quote in there. So I would definitely keep your eyes peeled of like, why is that quote? I think that quote is as support for the judge making the ruling. So, we might get a support question or strength and weaken question relating to the judge or the ruling. And that might involve the quote, if that makes sense. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the second paragraph. All right, so now we have a similar case. So this is case number 2. We got one case and we got a similar case. So the more cases we get, the more either support of a similar. Okay, so we have a second case. And when you have 2 examples of something, you are either giving more and more and more evidence of what you're trying to say by saying, well, we had this case, and that might be the one and only same-sex small business case. So that wouldn't be a lot of evidence for that occurring. But the more you're adding cases to it, the more evidence and the more support you're giving it. Or it could be a contrast. Well, here's a similar case, but it was ruled differently. So that's where my ears are picking up. Is we have a similar case, is it going to go the same way? Is it going to go the opposite way? And if it goes the opposite way, which side does the author fall on? So that's what I'm paying attention just in reading. We have a second case. So I hope that makes sense. So we have a similar case in New Mexico. We have photographers with their names. They're fused. Again, we have a state court ruling against them. So they're claiming First Amendment. Contrast with beliefs, free expression. And the lawyer is saying that you're requiring them to express a message in which they don't agree. Okay, so here's what we notice. And I hope y'all are picking this up. We have 2 cases, both of which are private businesses refusing wedding services to same-sex couples. So that's how they're similar. Here's the differences. The first one is citing religious grounds. He cannot, even though he objects to gay marriage on religious grounds. The second one is saying that they have the First Amendment right to not They have a right to free expression, and they don't have to create work that is in contrast with their beliefs. So we have beliefs and religious grounds, which aren't necessarily the same, but there's both refusing to give services to the same sex couples, but on the same, and they're both ruled against by state law. So one we have Colorado state judge, one we have New Mexico Supreme Court, both ruling against them. And then we have, so those are the similarities, and then the differences is one is religious view and one is saying First Amendment, you can't make us do that. So we're getting kind of a similar differences. And we still have 3 paragraphs. So I'm guessing he's going to wrap this up and give us his opinion on it. Or he might give us even more cases. Yay. I think everybody's hard at work because everybody's quiet. Okay. Alright, see, now we're summing up. Both of these cases have brought to the fore the complex legal issues of whether individual business people are required to provide wedding-related goods or services to same-sex couples. So we're summing up. Both of these are bringing the issue up. Now we have the gay right advocates. Say that their cases are in line with public accommodation laws, which ban discrimination based on sexual orientation. And then we have religious, so okay, we have contrasting views. So now we have the religious liberty advocates, however, assert that the state public accommodation laws, which are only in the 60s to prevent discrimination based on race, include gender and mental status, were not designed with same-sex marriage in mind. Okay, so we have 2 cases. We have gay rights saying state accommodation laws ban discrimination based on sexual orientation. We have religious liberty advocates saying, yeah, we have state public accommodation laws, but they were created for race, and now they include gender and marital status, but they don't include same-sex marriage. So we have a discrepancy on the definition of the public state accommodation laws. This is where you're going to get strength and weaken, contrasting viewpoints. What does the law actually cover? Some conservatives have tried to take a middle ground. So we have conservatives, we have middle ground. Private business people, such as the people up above, that they are not refusing to serve gay people, but are taking a stand against gay marriage. So it's not that they have a problem with them being gay, they have a problem with gay marriage. Philip said that so here's the Phillips Baker guy. He would have no problem baking cupcakes for a gay person's birthday party or serving gay customers that come into his Denver area shop. The issue, he claims, is not discriminating against gay people. It's about being forced to support marriage equality. And these, Philip claims, are 2 different issues. Okay. So, gay rights advocates are saying that there can't be discrimination on sexual orientation. Religious liberties say that is not even covered in public accommodation laws. But then here's Phillips, the baker, going, it has nothing to do with sexual orientation. It has to do with sexual marriage and marriage equality. So there's a lot of confusion and gray area about who's saying what and what laws mean what, and which is right for MCAT questions, because if y'all aren't confused, I don't know. I'm getting confused. Are y'all getting confused by this passage? There's a lot of overlap. There's a lot of gray area. There's laws that cover, don't cover. There's First Amendment. There's, cost to society, hurt to people. Okay, good. I'm glad y'all are getting confused too, because I'm starting to get confused. I feel like I need to draw a mind map for this kind of passage, because this is all over the place. I mean, it's like nobody can agree on anything, which is probably the main idea. Nobody can agree on anything. Hard to keep track of who says what. Yes. So this would be something where on your scrap paper, I don't actually have a piece of scrap paper. I am pitiful. Okay, so on my scrap paper, I would start. I would normally would not do charts for passages because I wouldn't even think that way. This I would. I would do little vertical charts, and I would say, okay, here's what the baker says: religious grounds. He's fine with gay people. Doesn't like marriage equality. Doesn't support gay marriage. Here's what the photographers say. Here's what the Colorado judge says. Here's what the lawyers of the photographer people say. Because we aren't told what the judge in New Mexico said. We just told that that state law made the refusal discriminatory. Here's what the gay rights are saying about their laws. Here's what the religious liberty are saying about their laws. Here's what the conservatives are saying. So I would make like a chart for this kind of passage because it is all over the place. And if I was jotting down notes, I would put nobody can agree on what law covers what and what's allowed and what's not allowed. What we do know is that if you ignore all the terms and all the confusion, we know that 2 private business owners refused wedding services to gay same-sex marriage, and that 2 states, different states, ruled against them. So the advocates of the religious and the gay rights and the conservatives and the baker and the photographer and the lawyers, that's all kind of he said, she said. We know what they tried to do, and we know what the state said, no, you can't do that. So that is the most important piece, but there is a lot of he said, she said in this. There's a lot of it. Okay, so let's hope that this last paragraph sums it up, although I have a feeling it's just going to make us even more confused. So we have, we got advocates for the community, so that's more advocates. I think the word advocates has been used in this passage like 20 times. We have more advocates that say that such thinking represents a moral and legal slippery slope. Discrimination is discrimination, one gay rights advocate said, saying that it's okay to refuse a wedding cake or take wedding photos might lead to efforts to refuse housing to same-sex couples or to terminate employees. All right. So far, the courts seem to largely agree. May 2014, more than half of Americans expressed support for marriage equality. As same-sex marriage becomes more familiar, perhaps fewer business people will claim their questionable right to refuse service to gay customers by any rationale. Okay, I am highlighting that last sentence and I am circling it because that last sentence just made me super happy. Super, super, super happy. This whole paragraph made me happy. And not because it fixed the he said, she said. Okay, so I thought the author was neutral on it because he was showing both viewpoints. He was showing the religious, he was showing the gay rights. He was showing the conservatives, he was showing the baker, he was showing the photographers, he was showing the lawyer, he was showing the judges. So he's kind of given us everybody's viewpoint until this last paragraph. And this is why I'm very, very, very happy. So, because I want the author to take a stand. I want the author, by giving us everybody's viewpoints and by giving us what everybody else is saying and where everybody is coming from, it makes him trustworthy. Okay, so if you have a politician who is telling you, or no, let's not do politicians because let's say an expert, and he's telling you why product A is better than product B. But he is only telling you about product A, and he doesn't tell you anything about product B. Or he doesn't tell you anything bad about product A, or anything good about product B. You're not going to trust him, because he's giving you a very one-sided argument. But if he says, here's product A's pros and cons, here's product B's pros and cons, here's why A is better than B, then you automatically have a sense of trust with him because he's giving you all the information out front. He's giving you the good, the bad, and everybody's viewpoints and all the information, and then stating his case. So by the author telling us the baker's viewpoint, the judge's viewpoint, the photographers, the lawyers, the gay right advocates, the religious, the conservatives, the baker again, and then coming to the community, he is earning our trust in him. And then he's going to sneak in what he thinks. And here's how he sneaks that in. So he takes kind of I want to say an extreme, but he's showing, if you're reading all this and you're like, okay, well, that's not such a big deal. I mean, if they don't want to serve the wedding, they don't want to serve the wedding. I don't understand how that's a big deal. So he's telling you why it's a big deal. Because if they don't do a wedding cake, next is no housing and employment. Then he says, so far the courts seem to largely agree, and in 2014 more than half. Okay, so that is still neutral. Here's the last sentence. As same-sex marriage becomes more familiar, okay, so we're still neutral, perhaps fewer business people will claim their questionable right to refuse service to gay customers by any rationale. That to me is emotional. That to me is business. Let's have less and less protests from business people. Their questionable rights. So he's saying, y'all don't have room to stand on by any rationale. He's saying, I don't care if it's religious. I don't care what your rationale is. It's not going to hold up. And it's not okay. So that last sentence between the words, perhaps fewer, questionable right, because usually those two words aren't put together. Questionable right. You either have a right to do something or you don't. So questionable right to refuse service by any rationale. That to me says the author is 100% in support of same-sex marriage. Not necessarily in support of same-sex marriage, but support in not refusing service to gay customers. So that gives me where the author stands, and that makes me happy because I feel like there's going to be some sort of question on that, and I like knowing where the author stands. It bugs me not to know where he stands because every single time that I read a passage and I'm confused on where the author lies, I always get a question about it, and it makes me so mad because I'm confused. But that to me is just very anti the business people, pro service of gay. Did y'all get that from the last sentence? Or am I reading into it a lot? Rain, I wouldn't necessarily say he supports same-sex marriage. I think he is against discrimination. Yes. Yay! I'm glad that y'all are getting that. But yeah, that's what I'm talking about the MCAT being sneaky. Is there's just going to be these key words that kind of just give you a feel. They're not going to be neon lights. The author's not going to be like, these business people are ridiculously stupid. Yes. Yay! I'm glad that makes sense. So, I like knowing where he stands. And what I was going to say, Rain, about the support same-sex marriage, one of the things you want to be careful on the MCAT is over broadening what they're saying or taking it, for instance, with questions, you can eliminate choices just by words like always, never, anything that either too narrows it by saying that every single time it happens this way, or it's too broad. There's going to be a main idea question where there's an answer that looks so pretty, but it's so broad, like supporting same-sex marriage when we're talking about discrimination of services. And those are pitfalls because the answers look so pretty, but they're too broad or too narrow. And usually the broad ones are the ones that we fall for. So you just want to be careful that you only express what is expressed in the passage and not any extra. Yes. Oh, anytime there's extreme words, I absolutely eliminate them. I mean, I can mark out answers just because of the words and the questions. Sometimes, not all the time. Yay! So are y'all ready to get to the questions? We ready to kick some butt now that we understand the passage? I would say main idea. Private business owners try to refuse same-sex marriage services. Courts ruled against them. Author agrees with courts. Discrimination. Discrimination is not okay. You want to be very, very simple with your main idea. Very, very to the point, no exaggeration. Discriminating, refusing services to same-sex couples that are getting married is discrimination. Bad. No bueno. I'm about to take Spanish 1, so I'm practicing. Yeah, they're going crazy out there. They're supposed to be in the bed right now. Daddy is in charge, if y'all can tell. I'm just happy they're not banging on the door. So, we're going to start at number 12. According to the passage. Okay. Here is a he said, she said question. Yay! So this is where your chart would be handy. So according to the passage, a religious liberty advocate might agree that. Okay. So here, I would go back. I don't like to go, we talked about this last time. I don't like to go back every question. It's a time killer and it's not necessary. I do go back if it's got something in quotations like that, or it's a specific word or phrase or person, especially with this. This is so confusing that it'd be hard to figure out. Now what? I'll be done in a minute, honey. Okay, so when we go back to the religious liberty advocates, which is the middle paragraph, 3, many religious liberty advocates, however, assert that state public accommodation laws cover race and gender and marital status, but not same-sex marriage. So, religious organizations face similar issues as art groups. Yeah, no. That's nowhere even, I don't even know how that could be a possible answer. There's nothing about arts groups. Religious groups should be allowed to discriminate against groups that violate their beliefs. That is a little harsh. I don't think that's a good answer either. They're not saying discrimination's okay. Actually, what they're trying to say is that that the laws cover discrimination based on gender and marital and race, but not same-sex marriage. So they kind of are advocating discrimination. But they're not advocating discrimination against everybody that violates their beliefs. So I feel like B is a little harsh. Yeah, I feel like that's a little extreme. C, public accommodation laws do not apply to the case of same-sex marriage. Yes, I would agree that. But I'm going to go to the next one just to be safe. Same-sex couples should be protected by the laws. No. So that one to me is C. I feel like C is just absolutely perfect and to the point and straight and narrow. They're saying that the laws do not apply to same-sex marriage. So I'm going with C. You guys agree? Yay, we got lots of C's. That's good. My lighting in here is horrible. I am so sorry, guys. Yay for C. All right, well, that was easy peasy. Let's go to the next one. An analogy to the belief that taking a stand against same-sex marriage is not akin to discriminating against individuals might be. All right, so now we want an analogy, and we're saying we're discriminating against same-sex marriage, but not against individuals. So kind of the institution versus... the camera is awful. I'm trying to get away from that light. So discriminating against, I don't know if institution's the right word for it, but marriage versus the individuals. Okay. So A, asserting that opposing interracial marriage does not constitute racism, which is really similar, which makes me nervous. B, so I'm going to skip that. I'm going to come back to A, because A is kind of verbatim. Like, A is just repeating it, I feel like. B, believing that same-sex marriage should be legal is not the same as encouraging it. I don't think that's the same at all. Arguing that having ageist attitudes doesn't preclude fair hiring decisions regardless of age. Or D, taking a stand against same-sex marriage but supporting interracial marriage. Okay, so I'm eliminating B and D right out the bat. Because an analogy, I don't like how it's asking for an analogy, because none of these are really analogies. Because we're taking a stand against marriage, but not the people in the marriage. So D is not the same because it's a marriage versus a marriage. So I would eliminate D. B, saying it's legal but not encouraging it, that has nothing, that's not taking a stand against it. And again, we're talking about a marriage and individuals, not whether or not it should be legal. So I'm seeing a lot of people say C. I'm between A and C. This is a hard one, honestly, because I feel like A hits it on the nose, but I feel like that's so easy. I'm getting nervous. These questions are easy. Do you guys ever get that? Please tell me I'm not alone. When the questions get really easy, you start getting nervous. Okay, so people are stuck on this one. Yeah, so here's what I do. If I am honest to God stuck between two answers, like I feel like A hits it on the nose. I feel like C, I could kind of apply the situation because it's having attitudes against, my gut is saying A, but what I would do, so I'm going to circle A, but I'm going to put a star next to it. What I do when I am in between two of them like this is I will either, yes, so I don't know if y'all have taken the MCAT before, but when you take the MCAT, and if you've taken a practice one on the computer, you can mark answers. So, or mark questions, I said, Jay. So this is a question I would mark. And I don't necessarily would go back at the end of the section, but at the end of these questions, like when we finish question 17, I might go back up to 13 and see how I'm feeling about that. And see if I feel any different. So that one I would mark. If I'm in paper, I'm, putting a star by it. If I'm, or a question mark, if I'm really confused. If I'm doing it on the computer, I mark it. Yeah. I don't review. Okay. Side note. On sciences, I only mark questions that are discrete. And here's why. Sciences, verbal, I'm usually really good on my timing. And I mean, yes, I would mark that. But again, once I move on to a different passage, I'm done with these questions because I'm not going to come back to it cold. Sciences, if there is a discrete question when the question is not associated with the passage, and I'm confused on it, I will mark it because sometimes it'll be a genetics question, and then later on the test there's a genetics passage, and it wakens something up in my mind, or it even shows me the answer, and I'm like, oh, I need to go back to that one. So if there's any discrete questions on sciences, I will mark those, and if I have time, I will hit review mark, and I will go back and review them. But passages wise for both science and verbal, Once I move on to a next passage, I do not go back to a passage because 6 passages later, I'm not even going to remember what this passage was about. I'm not. Between the adrenaline rush and the timing and the test, I'm not going to remember 6 passages later what this was even talking about. And I don't have time to reread it. So I will mark that to come back to at the end of these questions. But once I move on from this passage, I move on. Sciences, I will mark discrete questions that I'm confused on because it might get answered somewhere else in the test section. But always, 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 I learned this the hard way. Always, 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 because of adrenaline and you're rushing and time, before you end a section, if you have 10 seconds on your clock, hit review incomplete. That review incomplete button gets hit by me every single time I finish a section because I have skipped a question before and that really sucks. And if you have at least 10 seconds and you hit review incomplete and it takes you to one question that you missed, you have enough time to hit a letter, a random letter at that, go with C, and get out of there. Yeah, you don't have time to reread. And that's a waste of your time, so don't do it. But yes, always hit review incomplete. Always. I have learned that the hard way. Always, always, always. But yeah, so for when I'm doing these passages, I'm marking 13 because I don't feel great about it. I feel like A is the most on the nose. I feel like it's a little too on the nose, but I'm going to go with A. But I feel like C could be a good one too. There's something about C that I'm having a problem with because having ageist attitudes, that doesn't necessarily say that you're against a certain institution or you're against a pairing or you're against a certain action. I feel like that should be flipped. I feel like you would be arguing against the hiring of certain age, but not against the people of that age. Like, I have nothing against teenagers, but I wouldn't hire them kind of thing. So in that way, you're arguing against the action of a group. I am against teenagers in employment, but I'm not against teenagers as a people. So that's what bugs me about C. I feel like C could be reversed, and I'd be okay with that. Does that make sense? That's why I'm leaning towards A. And we talked about this the last time, and I hope that y'all are new are seeing this. You should, when you pick an answer, and it's not always easy because, like I said, I've been between that is a hard question. I've been between 2 answers or 3 answers before. You should be able to debate your answer. You should be able to say, this is why I think this one is more right than this one. And you should have a reason, not like it's letter A and I like the letter A. Or my name is Brandy, so I pick B. There should be a reason that you pick that answer, and you should be able to say, my answer is more right because X, Y, Z. And whether that's in support of your answer or against another answer, you should be able to somewhat debate it, if that makes sense. I like debating with y'all. It's fun. Okay, so I'm going with A. Some of y'all, if y'all can go with A or you can go with C, we know it's not B or D, and, well, one of us will be right. Somebody, it's either A or C. We know it's A or C, so we have a 50-50 shot. So let's move on to number 14. Which of the following might be another example of the First Amendment rights argument mentioned in paragraph 2? Okay, red flag, red flag. It tells you a location, paragraph 2, and it's got the quotation marks. Have y'all noticed that? If it is a retrieval question, they will put quotation marks, and that is basically them saying this phrase is in this passage somewhere. The first question had the quotation marks, the second question quotation marks, and it's got the location, which is even nicer because the last time we did a passage, we spent like 20 minutes trying to find a stupid word. So This is a retrieval question, so you're going to want, before I even look at the answers, because the answers will confuse you, with retrieval, and these are my toughies. I don't like retrieval questions. So before I look at the answers, I'm like thinking First Amendment rights, paragraph 2. Let's see what it says. So First Amendment rights as artists, they have a right to free expression. They should not be obligated to create work that is in contrast with their beliefs and that express a message with which they don't agree. So that's our starting point. So then we're going to go over here to our answers. Which one might be another example of free amendment rights in paragraph 2? A school child who refuses to recite the Pledge of Allegiance. Maybe. B, a property owner who neglects to pay real estate taxes. Well, we can eliminate that because refusing to pay something has nothing to do with First Amendment rights. C, a same-sex couple that chooses to marry. D, a taxi driver who refuses service to a same-sex couple. Okay, so D is tempting because it's talking about refusing service to a same-sex couple, the First Amendment rights, and they were arguing it for refusing service to a same-sex couple. The difference is they're using First Amendment rights because they're saying it is their art. They have the right to create whatever they want with their art and to express their art in their way and not be forced to create art they don't agree with. Yes, D is a trap. Stay away from D. Yes, okay. Absolutely. This is why you look it back up. This is why I hate retrieval questions. Because if I hadn't gone back to the passage, sorry, I'm old. I have bad knees. I'm probably older than all of y'all. So if I hadn't gone back in the passage and looked, I would have picked D. If I was flipping through this really quickly and was like, I would have gone with D. Because this is an article about refusing service to a same-sex couple. They use First Amendment rights to argue it. So, of course, D, taxi driver refuses service. But no, they're saying First Amendment rights because of expressing their art, creating work that contrasts with their beliefs. So this is creating something. This is an expression of something. This is expressing a message. And that has nothing to do with the taxi driver. So that is a trap. Trap! And it's easy to fall into because the first two questions were very, like, bam, bam. So we know it's not B and D. Sorry, guys. D's a trap. All right. Do y'all see why D's a trap, though? Yes. Okay. So if you just look at the question, another example of First Amendment rights argument for paragraph 2, then your eyes are gonna go to refuse service of same-sex couple because that is what this paragraph is. That's what they use their argument to fight against, was service to a same-sex couple, technically marriage. But that is a trap because they use the First Amendment rights. It says First Amendment rights as artists. They had a right to free expression, and they should not be obligated to create work that is in contrast with their beliefs. Well, as artists, whether they were painters, they're photographers, painters, or an author, you're not going to force them. You can't make a writer write a book about a same-sex couple. They have the right to write a book about whatever they want to write a book about, and they have the right to express their art and create their work on what they want to create their work on. So they have the First Amendment right to not write a novel about same-sex couples. So between the words create work, free expression, express a message, that is what they're saying. Yes. Okay. So I was leaning towards A too because a couple choosing to marry that really is not anything about work or artistic in any way, shape, or form. A school child refusing to recite the Pledge of Allegiance. It's an expression. It's a message. So we got free expression. We got message in contrast with their beliefs. I was going to go A too. A. Once y'all get rid of the trap, it falls into place. Okay. Did that make sense, Rain? It's how they're using the argument. It's not what they're using the argument for. Because technically they are using the argument to refuse service for a same-sex couple. So that's how they're using it. But it's an example of the argument, which is expression. It is sneaky. Yes, the MCAT is sneaky. That's why I'm saying it's a beast, and you gotta figure out its weaknesses, and you've got to learn the MCAT. Aw, well, that's why we're doing this, so it can make more sense down the line, because I will hopefully put my voice in your head, and you will hear me saying these things when you're reading it. You will hear me say, if there's something in quotation marks, look it up, and pay attention to certain words, and eventually you'll do it yourself. Yes, I hate it too. I do. Here's the deal with the MCAT. It is a critical thinking test. No. Victoria, the answer is no, but I'm about to say why. It's critical thinking. And that's because as doctors, they don't want you to say, and I mean, I know we've all heard that if it sounds like a horse, it's a horse, or whatever the saying is, if it walks and quacks like a duck, it's a duck. When someone walks in, think of it this way, because we want to be doctors, that's why we're taking this test. If someone walks into your office and says, let's take me for instance, oh, I've had headaches, I have migraines, I have nausea, I also sneezed 4 times on Tuesday. I didn't really, but I'm making stuff up. My left toe hurts, and my kids pulled my hair, and it fell out, so my hair's falling out. And you're going to have someone walk in your office and give you 5,000 symptoms, and they're going to leave out half of the important ones, and they're going to tell you either their life history, or they're going to lie to you and say they don't drink and they don't smoke. And you have to shift through all that crap to figure out what's wrong with them. And you have to look for the facial expression and the tone and what they're keeping from you, and kind of read underneath what they're saying and read between the lines. And that's what they're trying to teach you with this test, and what they're trying to measure that you can do with this test. Because that is something that is needed as a doctor, and medical school can teach us the medical information, the lab results, the anatomy, the how the body works, the diseases, but you have to be able to critically think and figure out what's important and what's not, and taking all the pieces together and making a picture. And is every day of your job going to be like that? Not necessarily, because most people, they come in with a runny nose and a sneezing, and it's a cold. But there are going to be those times where you need to shift through it all to figure out what is going on. And that is why the MCAT is written like this. So it's annoying, and it's stupid, and it is aggravating, but it has a purpose. And you got to respect that a little bit. And that's why you're doing this. So every time you get frustrated by a question like that, you think about standing there in your white coat. You think about facing that patient. And you think about that patient telling you their symptoms. Or, I want to work in the NICU, so I think of those little babies. I look at this MCAT and I think babies. Babies, 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 babies. I think babies not breathing right. Babies having heart palpitations. SATs being low. I think about those babies and me wearing my white coat and helping those babies. And it makes studying so much more worth it. And it definitely makes me want to study. Because there's a baby out there somewhere 10 years down the line waiting for me to come help them. And that's why I'm doing this. So get your why and think about it and envision it. And think about that patient telling you random crap. And you're trying to figure out what the hell is wrong with them. And you're just like, shut up and just tell me what's wrong with you. But that's what lab results are for too. Victoria, no, I do not predict the answer before looking at the choices, because your answer is not the MCAT answer 80% of the time. What I would pick to be the answer, if I were to write an answer, that would not be what I would write. So, for example, with that one, my example was an author writing a book I think that would be a great example. I would put that as the answer, but no, they don't. That's not what they put. And if I'm looking for something similar to that, A is somewhat, but not really. And if you create this answer in your head and you get invested in it, then you're going to look for an answer that's like your answer instead of an answer that is the MCAT answer. So I do not predict answers. I just shift through the answers and try to figure out which one's the best one. So, yay, babies! Yes, I want to work in NICU or the PICU. Probably NICU though.